Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. They were the continental pioneers who aggressively embraced a Jamaican form of music and interpreted it in ways that matched their own cultures and experiences, infusing African rhythms with excellent results. Jamaican music has been big in Africa since the 1960s, but it wasn't until the 1970s that indigenous artists began to play it. What they embraced wasn't lovers rock or dance hall, but roots reggae, which was considered as the musical weapon of choice to combat neo-colonialism in Africa and apartheid in South Africa especially. In this video, we are counting down our picks for the top 6 African reggae acts of all time. We identified 6 musicians using criteria of originality, lyrical content, consistency, the musical compositions, as well as the timeless value of their music, popularity, and production quality. But before we dive into our list, we need to first acknowledge 2 pioneers who are not in this countdown but definitely are more than deserving of a mention. The first of these is South African singer Carlos JJ, Africa's first roots reggae singer. He shared stages with the likes of Peter Tosh, Jimmy Cliff, and Bob Marley in several concerts on the continent and inspired many to follow his path. The second is Nigerian musician Sonny Okosun, who was said to have released the first reggae hit in Africa in 1978 that he achieved with the anti-apartheid anthem Fire in Soweto. He was close friends with Peter Tosh and Eddie Grant, and while he wasn't a reggae artist per se, he used the genre as a platform to further his mission as a freedom fighter using music. So now, let's get into our lists. Number 6. Evie Edna Ogoli. This petite Nigerian singer and guitarist made her debut in the late 1980s and enjoyed an astonishingly successful run into the 1990s. She sang in English and in her native Isoko language and captivated millions of fans around Africa with her simple, effortless style, sporting lyrics that contained native parables and social commentary. Her genius lay in her simplicity and sweet delivery, powered by some robust and brilliant instrumentals masterfully put together by her husband and producer Ima Ogosi, who was an enormously gifted instrumentalist himself. She was particularly big in West Africa, where she sold millions of copies of her 7 studio albums. Her music is still in rotation on radio stations around the continent, and the quality still holds up very well today. She since retired from music and currently lives in France. Number 5. Rocky Dawuni. This Ghanaian superstar acquired a taste for reggae as a young boy, growing up in the military barracks. One day while at home, he heard an army band rehearsing one of Bob Marley's songs from afar and became an immediate fan of reggae. When he got into the university, he formed his first band and made a name for himself after hustling his group into performing at a major concert in the capital, Accra. He released his first album, titled The Movement, in 1996 to great reviews and got a career boost after featuring on the 1998 Putumayo compilation album titled Around the World. His contribution to that album was the song In Ghana, and it featured alongside tracks from the likes of Burning Spear and Ernest Ranglin. Rocky Dawuni is a 2-time Grammy Award nominee and the first to emerge from Ghana. With 8 studio albums under his belt, he's an immensely popular and influential musician, and his music has been featured in television programs like ER, Dexter, and Weeds, not to mention a number of video games. Number 4. Tikenja Fakoly. Dumbia Musa Faki is one of 2 Ivorian artists on this list. He went into music at a very young age and assembled his first band in 1987. Though an exceptionally gifted artist, he is known more for his political activism and commentary. His debut album in 1993's Leisurely shot him into national prominence in his home country, and a slew of socially relevant albums made him an internationally acclaimed artist by the end of the decade. Due to his lyrics, which are fiercely critical of the political establishment, he was forced into exile in 2003 and was declared persona non grata in Senegal in 2007 after criticizing the president of that country. He also had a well-reported rivalry and beef with his compatriot Alpha Blondie that lasted for several years. The pair were forced to reconcile when their country was plunged into civil war and recorded a track together in 2012 titled Reconciliation. He also featured with international artists like Steel Pulse and made an appearance in the British band's African Holocaust album in 2004. For those not too familiar with his music, I recommend as a starting point 2007's Africain à Paris, a cover of British artist Sting's Englishman in New York. Number 3. Majek Fashek. Born Majekodomi Fasheke in Nigeria in 1963, he played the maracas as a youngster and began to play other instruments in his church with the passage of time. By the early 1980s, he joined a band called Jazztics, which gained popularity as an in-house band on a TV show. The band became session instrumentalists for a number of artists, including Evie Edna Ogoli, and their solid backing instrumentals helped kickstart her success. In 1987, the same year Evie Edna Ogoli's debut album dropped, Jazztics broke up, and Majek, who was the band's bassist, signed a record deal with a label called Tabansi Records and commenced a solo career. He released his phenomenal debut album titled Prisoner of Conscience in that same year, an album that was dedicated to Nelson Mandela. The album's first single, Send Down the Rain, became a monster hit that sold well across the continent. The album swept virtually every major Nigerian award in that year and was also a huge commercial success. His second album, titled I and I Experience, was released in 1989 and was also a strong commercial and critical success. His international career took off when he signed for Interscope Records in 1990 and simply burst into global fame. His performance on Late Night with David Letterman of his classic song So Long Too Long in 1992 ushered in a decade of promise. At the peak of his success, he toured with the likes of Jimmy Cliff and Tracy Chapman, but sadly, a struggle with drug addiction caused his career to nosedive and he never recovered his previous heights, and he passed on in 2020 at the age of 57. Number 2. Lucky Dube. This South African superstar started his career in music as a member of a pop group put together by his cousin, who was an artist and producer named Richie Siluma, before leaving to pursue a career as a solo reggae artist. His first album, Rastas Never Die, was banned by the apartheid government for its sensitive political content in 1985. His next album, Think About the Children, was very well received and set the stage for a glorious career. His next album, in 1987's Slave, cemented his status as a superstar and was a very popular album across Africa. His next albums, Together as One, released in 1988, and 1989's masterpiece, Prisoner, both sold millions of copies and are some of the most popular reggae albums across the continent till date. Not to mention his other classic albums, released back-to-back until his unfortunate death in 2007 during a robbery attempt. And coming in at number 1 is Alpha Blondie. Born Seydou Kone in Côte d'Ivoire in 1953, he had a love for music from his early years and formed a band while still in high school. He moved to the US to study to become a teacher in 1974, but while living in New York, he discovered the reggae genre and became an active figure on the reggae scene. He returned to Côte d'Ivoire in 1979, and after a childhood friend and then television producer gave him the chance to perform on several TV shows, he released his debut album titled Jah Glory in 1981. The album became an enormous success and a symbol of resistance because of the song Brigadier Sabari, which told his personal story of brutality at the hands of the Ivorian police. He became a huge star on the continent due to the African spin that he put on his records and became known as the Marley of Africa. His popularity spread to Europe and he went to Paris to record his second album, Cocody Rock, in 1984. The title track was recorded with the Wailers Band and the quality really showed. He went back home to record the brilliant Apartheid is Nazism album in 1985, which is my personal favorite, and recorded 1986's Jerusalem in Jamaica in Bob Marley's Tough Gong Studios. With 18 studio albums under his belt and backed by one of the world's finest reggae bands in his group, the Solar System, he is one of the busiest artists in the world, headlining shows along the biggest names in world music. Despite his busy schedule, he runs his radio station, Alpha Blondie FM 97.9, and personally reads stories from African authors on his own segment to encourage the reading culture in Côte d'Ivoire. So there you have it. Do let us know what you think about this list in the comment section below. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.